Hello, welcome back to this session. Now we're going to look at crafting your sales presentation, but this will start only if you know your audience really well. Now, sales presentations can happen in various contexts. For example, when I used to teach and when I used to sell to audiences, I had to deliver a presentation to 120 people at the same time. But when we work with some of our customers, such as high-end real estate, you end up having a situation where a presentation is made to one or two key decision makers at a time. So this is really going to depend on your context. Before we can craft a great sales presentation, we're going to need to do some thorough research on both our buyer, on our product, and how our product is going to benefit them. Now, the research is going to take a little bit of time, and it will take many forms, including online research, questions and analysis, or even sending out surveys to multiple people to better understand what their needs are. But the better you are prepared, obviously, the better the presentation is going to go. Sometimes people are not aware of the problems that they actually have, and these could be general problems in running their lives. You're actually going to dig a little bit to find out what these problems are, and this is part of your research. After establishing the needs and frustrations and all the situations that your clients face, you'll be in a much better position to help them. Questions to ask would be: what benefits does your product really provide, or what service does it provide to the prospective buyer? And how can your product or your service help them? And once you know the needs and the benefits that you can offer, then the sales presentation can be put together. Now, I'm referring here to a sales presentation, but other people also call this a sales pitch. The sales industry is moving away from the idea of a monologue where we are just presenting and people are listening, or where we are just pitching and people are listening. And we're moving to a situation where we've got more of an interactive dialogue, where people get an opportunity to give us feedback throughout the process. Now, as we discussed, there's going to be various types of presentations, but I'm going to give you an overall step-by-step set of guidelines that you can use to craft your presentation, and of course this you can adapt. We want to start off with objectives. Do we want to set up a meeting, or do we actually want to close a sale? For example, if people are in the phase where they're just becoming aware of our product, we might not opt for the sale immediately. So our objective is to simply arrange to meet them again so that we can help them to have a trial of our product or our service. Now, this will be valuable because knowing this, we can then tailor the sales presentation around the goals. And the whole point of the presentation is to move the buyer further along the sales funnel until we're in a position to convert them into a loyal customer. Now, here's another 80-20 rule, and ideally what we want to do is to implement this rule. We want to be talking about 20% of the time and listen to our buyer's needs 80% of the time. This is particularly the case when it's a one-on-one situation. Now, if you're talking to 100 people or to 200 people, and you're delivering a mass presentation, it can't be the case because you'll be overwhelmed with objectives that you never thought of before. But listening is one of the most fundamental skills that salespeople lack today. Again, we don't want to just fire away at people in a monologue conversation. It's got to be interactive. Remember, people are interested in adding their opinion, and whilst they're doing it, they want to see that they've got your undivided attention. Now, active listening. By showing active listening, we communicate to people that they are valuable to us and what they have to say really matters. And this is where your need for affirmation or a pat on the back is going to have to take a backseat in order to make way for the buyer to become the sole focus. After all, they are the ones who are going to be using the product and the service quite regularly. So it will be worthwhile to make sure that we're going to meet their needs fully. Now everybody wants to add value, and that is the whole purpose of a sales advisor. And when you talk, make sure that what you have to say is truly adding value to the presentation. This is the part where we will show the buyer how the product or the service is going to benefit them and what value it brings to their life. Remember, the benefits are the central point of the sales presentation. The buyer is only really interested in the benefits that they are going to experience. And they're of course interested in having their objections answered. Now, to help add value and some emphasis to the benefits of the product and the service, you can make use of testimonials. In modern marketing, we call this social proof. In other words, hey, we're selling a great product, but don't take our word for it. Don't listen to what our company is saying about ourselves. How about listening to what other happy customers have got to say about us? Testimonials simply add credibility to our product and the service. People want to hear what others have to say after they've tried it out. They don't want to be the only ones or the first ones who are taking a gamble on our product. They also want to hear that you helped others, and they want to know from others that the after sales experience has been good too. And this is in effect what we call the power of the stranger. So use the power of the stranger to your advantage. You also want to make use of storytelling, because people love stories, and stories actually help to draw your buyer's attention to the presentation, and it helps to personalize the presentation. In this phase, we're going to focus on personalizing the presentation so that people can relate to the story that we're telling them. Make sure that the information that we use is specific and highly relevant to the buyers. You can do this by specifying the buyer's role or talking about the information that arose when you were assessing the needs of your target audience. Whatever story you use in the presentation, just make sure that it is a compelling story. Storytelling and being specific to the buyer is going to help your presentation to be so much more targeted. We will need to cater for common objections. This is an interesting area because if you're highly experienced and you've done the same sales pitch before to groups of people, you will actually handle objections in a live environment, and you will be able to deflect them and spin them into positives to even further increase people's interest. But if you're just starting out, what I would recommend is that you deal with objections one-on-one. So deliver your sales pitch to a big group of people and say to them to come and see you. So basically, if it's in a big room, you would say, okay, now during the coffee break, I welcome you to come and see me and my colleague one at a time, and we'll deal with any objections that you might have. This will give you time to really master what it is that you're doing. Now, in a one-on-one situation, that's different. There we're going to deal with objectives immediately because there's no risk of affecting the larger audience with certain opinions. Great. We also want to make sure that we have a clear agenda. You want to cover a range of 3 to 5 topics and encourage the buyer's input within that agenda. Conversation is king. Asking good questions and asking smart questions regularly will be great because that keeps the flow. And feedback is also really important. We've got to save a couple of minutes just to get feedback from the buyers. Now, of course, we need to close the sale at some point. And here we need to ask the buyer the right questions that's going to be closing the sale, or that's going to be closing what I would call a mini conversion. A mini conversion is when I can see, great, excellent, the buyer has just moved through a certain part of the sales funnel. For example, if I get them to sign up for a free trial, great, they haven't bought yet, but that's a mini conversion because it's one step closer. And perhaps I've asked them in a big audience and said, can you grab your mobile phones quickly and could you click on sign up here for the free trial? Do it for us right now so that we can answer your questions after you had your free trial. We're also going to be versatile. Make sure that the presentation that we've got can be used by colleagues and other salespeople in the future. The reason I'm saying this is when we do research presentations, we're going to go all the way and we're going to do something really proper. But at the same time, we don't want to just be using this as a one-off. Hopefully it's something that could be used for future purposes in our company. Now, I find it very hard to see how any salesperson these days can work without PowerPoint. You're going to come across this at some point, so let's go through a couple of tips on PowerPoint. Firstly, you want to focus on one main point per slide. We don't want the slide to have too many different ideas. Have a visual on your slides as well. A maximum of 3 subpoints is normally good because then people don't become confused. Create the short and a long version of your presentation. So the short version will be 5 to 15 minutes long, and the long version would be up to 45 minutes. Why do we say this? Because if your presentation happens in a public event where you're a speaker, sometimes there may have been a cancellation and all of a sudden you've got more time. Or other times there may be an interruption and you've got less time. And in this case, if you've got 2 versions, you are fully prepared for that. Also, leave some time for interactions and for questions. And of course, for any changes in what we didn't expect. You never know if your meeting is going to be cut short or if there's going to be emergencies, so always be prepared for it. Throughout the preparation, keep the goals of your sales presentation in the forefront. You want to establish agreement with your buyers that whenever there's a problem or an opportunity, you're going to help them with that. Finally, you want to use this as an opportunity to reaffirm or even just establish your credibility with your buyer. Remember, even if they didn't buy as a result of the presentation, if you establish credibility, this is going to lead to future referral. Success is where preparation and opportunity meets. Great guys, I love this area, preparing for your sales and crafting competitive sales pitches. So if you've got any questions about it, let me know.